Callum Owens grunted as he shoved his shoulder into the back of the snow-covered sedan, boots slipping on the ice-slicked street. The wind howled down the empty road, whipping snow into his face, but he kept pushing. Inside the car, a woman was gripping the steering wheel with white knuckles, her breath fogging the glass. "You're almost there," she shouted through the cracked window. "Yeah, I got it," Callum yelled back, digging his boots in harder. With one last push, the tires caught traction and the car lurched forward out of the snowbank. He stumbled back, catching himself just before he hit the ground. The sedan rolled to a stop a few feet ahead. The driver's door swung open and a woman stepped out, wrapped in a long, expensive-looking coat with fur at the collar, her black boots spotless despite the snow. She was stunning, dark brown hair spilling over her shoulders, sharp cheekbones, lips red from the cold. "You okay?" Callum asked, brushing snow off his jacket sleeve. "I'm the one who should be asking you that," she said, walking toward him. "That was insanely kind of you. You didn't have to do that." He gave a half shrug. Didn't look like anyone else was stopping. "You would have been stuck out here all night," she smiled, and for a second the cold didn't feel so bitter. "Well, thank you, seriously. I don't even know how you saw me. I thought I was invisible in this storm." "I was coming back from picking up my son from school," Callum said, nodding toward the sidewalk where a little boy stood bundled in a too-big puffer coat, hugging a backpack against his chest. "Saw your car stuck halfway across the intersection." The woman looked over and waved at the boy. "He yours?" "Yeah, that's Caleb." Caleb gave a small wave back, then looked up at his dad. "Are we gonna be late for dinner, Daddy?" Callum's face softened. "We'll be okay, bud." The woman looked back at Callum, then reached into her coat pocket. "I want to give you something, please." He held up a hand. "No, really, I didn't help you for money." "It's not that," she said, pulling out a sleek black business card. "Just here. In case you ever need anything." Callum took it reluctantly, glancing at the card. "Fiona Raines, CEO, Raines Enterprises." He blinked. "You're a CEO?" Fiona grinned. "Surprised, a little," he said. "You don't usually see executives getting stuck in the snow driving themselves." "I like driving," she said with a shrug. "Usually, today didn't go as planned," he smiled. "Well, good thing I was here." Their eyes held for a second longer than necessary before Caleb tugged on his dad's sleeve. "I'm cold." "Right," Callum said, snapping out of it. "We should get going." Fiona hesitated, then said, "I owe you dinner." He laughed. "You don't owe me anything." "I want to," she said. "Let me thank you properly. You free tomorrow night?" Callum looked down at Caleb, then back at her. "Depends. You okay with kids at dinner?" Her smile widened. "Absolutely." The next night, Callum stood in front of a sleek steakhouse downtown with Caleb's hand in his. He felt out of place in his worn coat and boots, but Caleb was bouncing with excitement, so he pushed the nerves down. Inside, Fiona was already waiting, wearing a navy dress that looked like it cost more than Callum's rent. When she saw them walk in, her face lit up. "Hey," she said, standing to greet them. "You made it, Caleb, right?" Caleb nodded. "You drive a nice car." Fiona laughed. "Thank you." "You hungry?" They sat in a booth near the window. The restaurant was warm, candles flickering on the table, soft jazz playing in the background. Callum watched Fiona help Caleb pick something from the kids' menu, smiling like she actually enjoyed it. "You don't seem like a CEO," he said once the waiter left. "Why? Because I'm not cold and terrifying." "Exactly," she laughed. "I'm terrifying in meetings, just not with sweet kids and the man who saved me from freezing to death." Callum raised an eyebrow. "You don't have anyone else who could have come helped you?" Fiona sipped her wine. "I've got people, but sometimes it's easier to be alone." He nodded slowly. "Yeah, I get that." She tilted her head. "What about you? You've got Caleb. Anyone else?" "No, his mom left when he was a baby." "It's been just us for years." Her expression softened. "That must be hard," he shrugged. "It's life. I work construction gigs when I can get 'em. Right now, just cleaning snow and shoveling driveways to keep us going." Fiona looked at him for a long moment, then said quietly, "You're doing a good job." Callum looked away, caught off guard. "Thanks." Throughout dinner, Fiona asked questions about Caleb's school, what Callum liked to do, what his dream job was. He found himself opening up more than he had in years. She listened, really listened, with those sharp eyes and that easy smile. When the check came, Callum reached for his wallet, but Fiona waved him off. "No way," she said. "I invited you, my treat. Fiona, this place probably costs more than my car." "That's fine. You pushed my car for free, remember?" he chuckled. Fair enough. When they stepped outside, snow was falling again. Fiona walked with them to the curb where Callum had parked his beat-up sedan. "I had a really nice time," she said. "Yeah, me too," Caleb yawned. "Can we see her again, Daddy?" Callum glanced at Fiona, who was smiling. "I'd like that." "Then it's a date," she said, brushing snow off her coat. He watched her climb into her sleek black car and drive off, her taillights glowing red in the snow. Callum looked down at the business card still in his pocket. He had no idea what he'd just gotten himself into. But for the first time in a long time, it felt like something good. The invitation came 3 days later. A thick, cream-colored envelope, hand-delivered to the front desk of the community center where Callum had just finished patching drywall for a part-time gig. The receptionist had handed it over with a raised brow, and he'd stood in the parking lot staring at the elegant script on the front. "Mr. Callum Owens." Inside was a card embossed with gold foil, an invitation to a charity gala hosted by the Raines Foundation. Formal dress required. Saturday evening. The venue was a place Callum had only ever driven past the Sterling, a historic hotel with marble columns and chandeliers that glittered through the windows. He sat in his car for a long time, reading the invitation over and over. Then he tucked it into the glove box and told himself to forget it. But he didn't. That night, while Caleb played with blocks on the living room rug, Callum stood at the kitchen counter staring at his phone, trying to figure out how much it would cost to rent a suit. Every place he called gave him the same answer: too much. The next morning, he showed up at the second-hand shop across town and found a navy suit that was a little tight in the shoulders and about half an inch too short in the sleeves, but it would do. The tag said $25. He paid in cash and told himself he was just going to support Fiona's cause, not because he was expecting anything else. Caleb spent that night with his neighbor, Mrs. Tully, who had watched him before when Callum picked up late shifts. She handed him a bag of cookies as he left. "Just in case you don't like the fancy food," she said with a wink. By the time Callum reached the Sterling, his palms were damp and he'd rechecked his tie in the rearview mirror 4 times. The doorman barely looked at him as he stepped inside. He'd never seen anything like it. The entry hall alone was the size of a basketball court, with ceilings that stretched 2 stories high, gold trim catching the light from dozens of hanging crystal fixtures. Guests in floor-length gowns and tuxedos were sipping champagne from fluted glasses, their laughter echoing off the marble floors. Callum kept to the edge of the crowd, feeling like a trespasser in someone else's dream. Then he saw her. Fiona stood at the center of the ballroom, surrounded by people in tailored suits and glittering jewelry. She wore a dark crimson gown with a low back and delicate straps that shimmered when she moved. Her hair was swept up, revealing an elegant line of her neck that made Callum's throat tighten. She turned and her eyes found his instantly. Whatever conversation she'd been in dropped away. She walked toward him, her heels clicking softly against the polished floor, her gaze never wavering. "I wasn't sure you'd come," she said as she reached him. "I almost didn't," he admitted. "Wasn't sure I'd fit in." Her eyes scanned him from head to toe. "You clean up better than anyone in this room, and you do fit in. You're standing here, that counts." His chest tightened. "This place is something else." "It's just a building," she said. "What matters is who's inside it." He didn't know what to say to that. She touched his arm lightly. "Come with me." She led him through the ballroom, introducing him to donors, board members, and artists whose work lined the gallery walls. Each time someone asked who he was, Fiona simply said, "A friend of mine," with a tone that left no room for questions. They ended up on the balcony overlooking the city, the air crisp but not cold. Lights stretched to the horizon, 1,000 windows glowing gold. "This is the first time I've done something like this in years," he said. "Gone to a party. Let someone do something for me without expecting a favor in return." She turned to face him, her expression unreadable. "Do you really think that's what this is?" "I don't know," he said honestly. "I've been in the kind of life where everything has strings attached." Her voice was quiet. Then maybe it's time you saw something different. They stood in silence for a moment, the sounds of jazz and clinking glasses drifting from inside. I wasn't expecting you to say yes, she added. To any of this. I wasn't expecting to be asked. She looked at him, really looked, and he realized she wasn't just being kind. There was something deeper behind her eyes, something curious and searching. I've been doing this for a long time, she said, running things. Leading people who talk more than they listen. It gets empty. You don't seem empty. I didn't say I was, she replied, but it's easy to forget what matters when you're surrounded by people who only care about appearances. And you don't, she shook her head. I care about what's real. He held her gaze, the air between them charged with something he couldn't name. Inside, applause began. Fiona glanced over her shoulder, then back at him. I have to give a speech, he nodded. Go ahead. I'll be here. She hesitated, then leaned in and brushed a kiss against his cheek. Don't disappear. He didn't. He watched her step up to the podium, her voice strong and sure as she spoke about opportunity, resilience, and giving people a chance when they needed it most. She didn't look at anyone else while she spoke, only him. After the speech, people swarmed her. Callum stepped back, letting the crowd pull her away. He found a quiet corner near the exit and waited. A man in a silver tie approached him, holding a wine glass and a too-smooth smile. You're the guy she invited, aren't you? He said. The snow hero. Callum didn't answer. Word gets around fast, the man continued. You're not exactly our usual crowd, but Fiona's always had. Interesting taste. Callum's jaw tightened, the man leaned in slightly. Just don't get comfortable. She has a way of getting bored. Before Callum could respond, Fiona appeared beside him. Is there a problem? She asked coolly. The man straightened. Of course not. Just making conversation. Then make it somewhere else. The man left without another word. Fiona turned to Callum. You okay? I'm fine, he said, though his hands were clenched at his sides. She stepped closer. I didn't bring you here to be humiliated. I know, but that guy, he's probably right. No, he isn't, she said firmly. He doesn't know me. And he sure as hell doesn't know you. Callum looked at her, something shifting behind his eyes. Why are you doing this? She took a breath. Because you didn't ask for anything, and because I haven't stopped thinking about you since that night. He didn't speak. I don't care about your job, your bank account, or what kind of suit you wear, she added. I care that when you saw someone stuck, you got out of the car and helped. That's who you are. Callum's voice was low. You're not like anyone I've ever met. Good, she said. Because I'm not looking for anything ordinary. They stood there, the noise of the gala fading around them like static, and for the first time in years, Callum didn't feel like he was on the outside looking in. He felt seen. Callum didn't hear from Fiona for 4 days. Not that he expected her to call. People like her didn't chase down men who had to count their groceries twice at checkout. He told himself it didn't matter. He focused on Caleb, on repainting the community center's gym, on shoveling sidewalks before sunrise. The gala had been a fluke, a glimpse into a world where he didn't belong. Then Thursday came. Callum was on a ladder, fixing a broken light fixture in the church basement where he sometimes helped out for extra cash, when a familiar voice echoed from the stairwell. Am I interrupting a very important electrical repair? He nearly dropped the screwdriver. Fiona stood at the bottom of the stairs, wearing dark jeans, ankle boots, and a black leather jacket that made her look less like a CEO and more like a rock star who'd taken a wrong turn. Callum climbed down slowly. Didn't expect to see you here. I figured that much, she said. But you didn't exactly make it easy to find you. He wiped his hands on a rag. I didn't mean to disappear, I just figured. You had a million other things going on. I do, she said. But none of them felt quite right this week. And I realized it's because I haven't been able to stop thinking about you. He glanced away. You might want to rethink that. I'm not exactly a walk in the park. I don't want to walk in the park, she said. I want something real. Callum leaned against the wall, arms crossed. You ever been in a place like this before? She stepped forward, looking around at the cracked tile and flickering lights. Not unless I was handing over a donation check. Then why come now? Because I had a meeting this morning with 3 investment partners who spent more time talking about golf than the project we were supposed to fund. Because I needed to be reminded what it feels like to be around someone who doesn't care how expensive my shoes are. He met her eyes. They are expensive, aren't they? She smiled. Ridiculously. He let out a breath, half a laugh. You're not what I expected. Same, she said. I thought you were the guy who helped me out of the snow. Turns out, you're also a guy who volunteers at churches and raises a kid on his own without asking anyone for help. Callum tensed. I'm not a project, Fiona. I didn't say you were. I've seen people like you offer help with one hand and take something with the other. She stepped closer. I'm not asking to fix you, Callum. I'm asking for the chance to get to know you better. And maybe let you get to know me without the designer dress and champagne speeches. He studied her for a long moment, then his voice lowered. I've got Caleb tonight. I figured, she said. So I called Mrs. Tully and asked if she'd be okay keeping him a little longer. She said yes. And she gave me a container of something called emergency lasagna. Callum blinked. You talked to Mrs. Tully. She's very persuasive, Fiona said. And she told me if I hurt you, she'd hit me with a broom. He laughed, and the sound surprised them both. Outside, Fiona's car was parked on the curb, but instead of getting in, she led him down the block to a nearby diner with flickering neon and a cracked Formica counter. It wasn't quiet, but it was honest, like everything about the way she looked at him tonight. They slid into a booth near the window. A waitress dropped 2 menus without asking for names. Fiona opened hers but didn't look down. What made you stop that day? When you saw me in the snow, Callum ran his thumb over a scratch in the table. You looked like you needed help. Didn't seem like the kind of problem that should take more than a good push. She tilted her head. You didn't think twice. No, I just did it. Fiona nodded slowly. That's the part that stuck with me. He looked at her across the table. Why did you say yes to dinner with a guy you knew nothing about? Her voice was soft. Because I'm tired of people who only want me for what I can do for them. You didn't ask for anything. You just showed up. The waitress returned with coffee. Fiona poured 2 cups and pushed one toward him. He took a sip, then leaned back. I don't date much, he said. Not because I don't want to, just Caleb comes first, always. I wouldn't ask you to change that, she said. You being a father, that's part of why I'm here. He studied her carefully. You know this doesn't get easier, right? My life isn't built for champagne and rooftop parties. Maybe I'm not built for them either, she said. Not anymore. The silence stretched, comfortable and new. Then Fiona pulled a thin envelope from her jacket and slid it across the table. Callum raised an eyebrow. What's this? Something I want you to consider. It's a contract for a restoration project, low-income housing on the south edge of the city. My foundation just acquired it. He didn't touch the envelope. Are you offering me a job? I'm offering you a team, a fair wage. A chance to do what you're good at, he hesitated. This isn't charity, it's trust, she said. You told me you were tired of people expecting something in return, so here's something with no strings. You can say no. He picked up the envelope and looked at it, then at her. I'll think about it. That's all I'm asking. When they left the diner, the street was quiet, the air sharp with early spring frost. Fiona walked him back to his car, stopping just before he opened the door. I'm not trying to rescue you, she said. Just hoping I can be someone who stands next to you while you rescue yourself. Callum looked down for a moment, then back up. You're not what I expected either. She reached for his hand, and for the first time he didn't pull away. And in that stillness, with the hum of streetlights overhead and the distant sound of a train on the tracks, something shifted between them, something not loud or dramatic, but solid. Real. For Callum Owens, that was more than enough. The wind curled around the rooftop garden like a whisper, fluttering the edges of the white tablecloth and rustling the petals of the blush-colored roses arranged down the center of the long table. Strings of warm lights cast a soft glow over the skyline. Callum stood near the edge, fingers loosely curled around a glass of sparkling cider, his tie slightly loosened after dinner. He'd never been to a place like this, certainly never for a private dinner that wasn't a wedding or someone else's celebration. But tonight wasn't about someone else. It was for him. Fiona stepped onto the terrace from the glass doors behind him, carrying a small black folder tucked under her arm. The heels she wore made no sound on the stone tiles as she crossed to where he stood. I had to make sure you weren't sneaking out, she said, stopping beside him. I wouldn't leave a night like this, he replied, watching the city lights blink below. Still trying to wrap my head around it, she handed him the folder. Then this might push things over the edge. He opened it slowly, flipping through the pages. On the top sheet was a project blueprint. Beneath it, a signed contract with his name printed in crisp black letters under the title, Lead Contractor Owens Restoration. Callum looked up, stunned. "You made it official. We broke ground yesterday," she said. "The team starts next week. You'll set the schedule, hire who you want, build it your way. I haven't even accepted. You did the moment you showed me your notes on insulation thickness," she said. "Besides, you already toured the site with the crew." "Once," he said. "That doesn't mean I trust you," she cut in. "And I'm not putting that trust in someone who doesn't deserve it." He stared at her, the weight of it all pressing into his chest. "You're serious, as a heart attack." The folder closed in his hands. "You know I've never run a full project before. You've raised a kid by yourself and worked 2 jobs for years," she said. "You've already done harder." Callum looked away, voice quieter. "You make it sound easy." "I know it's not," she said. "But I also know you're not afraid of hard things." He was quiet for a beat, then he turned toward her. "Why me?" Fiona tilted her head, considering. "Because you don't see people as obstacles, you see them as worth saving. And because when I'm around you, I don't feel like I'm performing." He watched her, something shifting behind his eyes. "You're not performing now, I know," she said. "That's what scares me." He opened his mouth to speak, but a voice interrupted them. "Daddy," Caleb barreled through the open terrace doors, cheeks flushed with excitement. He ran straight into Callum's arms, nearly knocking the folder to the ground. "I thought you said it was just dinner," Caleb said, eyes wide. "This looks like a wedding place." Callum chuckled, steadying him. "It's not a wedding, kiddo, just a fancy dinner." Fiona bent down to Caleb's level. "Hey, I saved you some of the chocolate mousse." "You did?" he asked, eyes lighting up. "It's in the fridge and no one's allowed to touch it but you." Caleb grinned. "You're the best." She gave him a mock serious nod. "I try." Callum raised an eyebrow. "I thought you said he was staying with Mrs. Tully tonight." "He was," Fiona said, standing, "but he told her he didn't want to miss your big night." Caleb tugged on his dad's sleeve. "She told me you got a job where you're the boss." Callum ruffled his son's hair. "Looks like it." "Does that mean we can get a TV with a remote that works?" Fiona laughed and Callum sighed. "We'll talk about it." As Caleb darted off to find his dessert, Fiona turned back to Callum. "I wanted him to be here. This is his win too." Callum looked at her, eyes softer now. "You didn't have to do all this." "I know," she said, "but I wanted to, and not just because of the project." He waited. "I've spent years building something that looked impressive from the outside," she continued. "But it never felt like mine. This tonight it feels like the first thing that does." He tucked the folder under his arm and took a step closer. "Are you saying you're not going back to all those boardrooms and investor calls?" "I'm saying I'm choosing what matters," she said. "And right now, that's this. You, Caleb, the life we could build if you'll let me be part of it." Callum's jaw flexed, like he was holding back something heavy. "You sure about that? Because I can't offer you penthouse parties and private jets." She reached for his hand. "I've already had all that. What I haven't had is someone who looks at me the way you do." He swallowed. "How do I look at you? Like I'm enough?" He pulled her in slowly, arms wrapping around her waist. "You are." Their kiss was quiet, steady, nothing like the chaos of the world they'd come from. It wasn't about escape or fantasy. It was about grounding, about choosing. When they broke apart, Fiona rested her forehead against his. "So, do we make it official?" He grinned. "You mean the job or the relationship?" "Both." Callum glanced toward the terrace doors, where Caleb waved at them with chocolate on his face. He turned back to her. "We already did." Later that night, as they stood beneath the rooftop lights with Caleb dancing in silly circles behind them, Fiona leaned into Callum's side. "I've never felt like I belonged anywhere before," she said. "You do now," he said. "Right here." And for the first time in a long time for both of them, it felt true. The scent of fresh cut pine and sawdust hung in the air as Callum stepped through the skeletal framework of what would soon be the new housing complex. Ladders leaned against unfinished beams, blueprints fluttered on a makeshift table, and electric cables coiled like veins along the dusty floor. He wiped his forehead with the back of his wrist, glancing at the half-installed drywall. "Don't let me interrupt the master at work," Fiona called from behind him, her voice wrapped in warmth and amusement. He turned, raising a brow as she approached in boots and a navy field jacket, a thermos in one hand and a paper bag in the other. "I brought coffee," she said, handing him the thermos, "and something dangerously close to a quassa." Callum took it, lips curving as he opened the bag. "How close we talking?" "It was labeled buttery swirl," she replied. "That's either a baked good or a shampoo." He bit into it, chewing thoughtfully. "Definitely edible." Fiona leaned against a support beam, watching the crew in the distance as they worked on framing the second unit. "It's coming together faster than I expected." "Got a solid team," he said between bites. "People actually care about the work, makes all the difference." She folded her arms. "You're doing more than making a difference here. You're creating something that's going to change lives." Callum looked at her, brushing crumbs from his fingers. "You did that. You backed this." "No," she said. "I supported it. You built it." Their eyes held, and for a moment the noise of the site faded into the background. Then Fiona's phone buzzed in her pocket. She pulled it out, glanced at the screen, and sighed. "Let me guess," Callum said. "Another board member who thinks you should be focusing on something more prestigious. Worse, an offer." She pocketed the phone without replying. "Corporate acquisition across the Atlantic. They want me to relocate." He froze. "Are you considering it?" She met his gaze, steady, not even for a second. Callum didn't speak right away. Then, voice low, he asked, "You sure? That kind of thing doesn't come around twice." "Neither do you," she said. "And I've spent too long chasing the next big thing while ignoring what actually feels right. I'm done with that." He stepped closer, setting the thermos on a nearby beam. "So what happens next?" "After this place is finished, we launch the second phase," she said. "Smaller properties, more community spaces. I want to build something that doesn't just shelter people but gives them dignity." "You've really changed." "I've just stopped pretending," she said. "You helped me do that." He reached for her hand. "I didn't do anything except show up." "You showed up," she said. "And you stayed. That's everything." A few yards away, Caleb's laughter echoed from where he was helping one of the crew organize paint supplies. Fiona glanced over, smile softening. "He's thriving," she said. "I've never seen a kid so happy to hand someone a screwdriver." "He thinks he's part of the crew," Callum said. "I'm not correcting him." She looked back at him, something more serious flickering in her eyes. "You ever think about giving him more, a real home?" "Stability? I do," he said. "Every day." "And what if I said I wanted to be part of that?" Callum hesitated, fingers tightening around hers. "You sure you're ready for that kind of life? School runs, grocery lists, bedtime arguments about brushing teeth." "I'm not just ready," she said. "I want it with you." He searched her face as if trying to believe it was real, then his voice dropped. "Move in with us." Fiona blinked. "You mean that? We've danced around it long enough," he said. "You're already part of our days. You belong with us if you want to." She let out a breath, smiling as her eyes glistened. "Yes, I want to." They kissed, slow and unhurried, surrounded by the scent of wood and fresh paint and the hum of new beginnings. When they pulled apart, Caleb came bounding over, cheeks flushed. "Can Fiona help pick out my room color?" he asked breathlessly. "She has better taste than you." Callum raised a brow. "Gee, thanks." Fiona crouched beside him. "Only if we agree on no glitter paint," Caleb groaned. "Fine, but I want a green wall." "Deal," she said, holding out her hand. He shook it solemnly. They spent the rest of the afternoon walking the site, Fiona learning the layout while Caleb darted between rooms, already claiming corners as his own. Callum watched them from the far end of the hallway, heart thudding with something that no longer felt like fear. Later that month, they moved into a modest but sunlit townhouse on the edge of the development, one of the first completed units. Fiona donated her old penthouse to a women's transitional housing program and never looked back. On a quiet Sunday morning, Callum stood in the kitchen flipping pancakes while Fiona poured 2 mugs of coffee. Caleb ran through the living room in mismatched socks, narrating an imaginary battle between stuffed animals. Fiona leaned against the counter, watching him. "You know what I realized?" "What?" Callum asked, stacking pancakes. "This is the first time I've woken up somewhere and not felt like I had to prove anything." He handed her a plate. "Maybe because you finally found someone who doesn't expect you to." She set the plate down and reached for his hand. "I love you," he smiled, thumb brushing her knuckles. "I love you too." They ate breakfast at the table with sunlight pouring through the windows, laughter filling the room between bites. Plans were made, chores were shared, and life unfolded not in grand declarations, but in the quiet certainty of two people who had finally found where they belonged. And they never looked back.